What's happening, guys? We're back here at Counter Calls with another deep dive into one of the clips. Recently, we had Dr. Naidoo of Shine Pediatrics on the show, and he was a wealth of knowledge. He is different, I would say, than what most pediatricians are offering, where he's not so quick to issue antibiotics, because he does discuss that not only do antibiotics wipe out the bad bacteria and the microbes that are harmful, but they wipe out everything else. They're indiscriminate killers. Here, he's talking about sun exposure in kids. Let's jump right into it. If I can get this to work, hang on.
Trying to develop some sun endurance. So I think like the longer you spend time outside, the more your skin will start to get accustomed to the UV light.
Sure.
I've experienced this with one of my daughters. In fact, one of them is very olive skinned. The other is very pale skinned. One that is very pale skinned, we would repeatedly have to put sunscreen on her, and we tried to find the right sunscreens, and she seemed to always get burnt to some extent, but as time goes on, she seems to have adapted. And this summer recently, she fared very well, and she's still pale skinned, but she does not burn as easily or as quickly as she used to. Let's get back into it.
Look at those protein
30
bars.
grams of protein in it,
Yeah, you need to look at those protein bars too, because like we were talking about with the seed oils and stuff, so the protein might be good, but then there's all those other.
Is always opt for real food over snacks if you can, especially for your kids. The nutrients are by far exceed anything else. Let's go.
The meat products. My child's doing maybe a couple of different nut butters. Then I'm not really too worried about like their protein intake.
Yeah.
But if you have a kid who's like really just carb driven, they eat a lot of bread,
Oh my goodness.
and not doing anything with like the meat based products, then that's a child that I do worry about.
Sure.
For sure. Here's two things, okay? The nut butters, bread, kids, I understand that most kids eat it, and, you can't send your kid with, rare steak and boiled eggs every day. They're going to get laughed at. So you have to find the fine balance. But nut butters, my girls, occasionally they have them. It seems that there's a lot of phytic acid in them. There's a lot of things that leach minerals out of your body. It does cause some constipation. If you have any kids that deal with constipation, I would stay away from nuts and seeds. The other thing is about protein. If you lead with a fat first and a protein first regimen, then kids get filled up rather quickly, and they don't have a lot of room for the carbs that he's talking about, the breads and everything. So if you want to find the balance, put a simple rule in there that they got to eat the protein first. Chicken, beef, eggs, steak, bison, anything. Bacon, I don't care. But fat first, protein first. And what's interesting about animal meats in general is that if you look at animals in the wild, Dr. Chafee has talked at length about this. If you look at animals in the wild, they don't have crooked teeth. In fact, before the dawn of agriculture, we didn't have crooked teeth, and we were a lot taller. Men in general dropped on average height by 6 inches at the dawn of agriculture, and their teeth got crooked. So meat has one thing that's essential for optimal jaw health. That's vitamin K2. Okay. And another thing, they're chewing more. They're using their jaw muscles. Their teeth are going to be straighter. If you want to maybe possibly avoid the orthodontist and avoid that expense, feed them some meat. They're going to be better off. They're going to be stronger. They're going to be faster. Their brains are going to work more optimally. Okay, I digress. Let's hear from the expert, because I'm just a producer.
Breads and oils, and we just discussed the differences
this is
between
very
saturated
different.
fat.
Get that margarine in there, baby.
Like margarine, like
in
what
there.
my mom used to give me growing up, the shed spread. That's horrible.
I can't believe it's not butter.
Yeah.
Get that spray butter, bro. Did you get that spray butter?
Who didn't have the spray butter?
I can't
And you're
believe it's
also
not
getting
butter.
the propellant in that too.
Yeah. No, it's crazy. So in my house, dude, my kids, we love eggs. My kids love eggs.
Eggs are awesome.
Red meats,
Yeah.
veggies, fruit.
So there's this other kind of philosophy that my wife and I have talked about. And again, I think that there's some research to say that like being vegan or vegetarian can be healthy.
Sure.
But I think
it
too,
works
like,
for
one of the
some
things,
people.
if you're going to go down that whole vegan vegetarian route, you have to have accessibility to food all the time, because usually those individuals are always hungry.
Yeah.
Because that's the whole purpose of like saturated fats. You eat a good steak, you can go several
Long
hours without
time.
eating.
Mhm.
And your
Absolutely.
body can break down that fat and convert it into the
Mhm.
proper energy that you need. That's what people talk about, like ketosis and
Yeah.
stuff. So sometimes it's healthy not to eat so much, but in
Mm.
our communities, there's food everywhere.
Okay.
So if you have food everywhere, and then you have a kiddo who's like eating, good piece of steak or, other kind of red meat, and then they're eating like, snacks that are full of carbs, that's just defeating the purpose of eating the red meat, because
Mhm.
now you've eaten all
Right.
those carbs along with it,
Yeah.
So I think the main thing with the vegan-based diet is, if you're going to be vegan,
If you eat fat first, then they won't have much room for all the other carbohydrates. I think that's important. Fat and protein first.
who are vegan who go a while without eating, they're very lethargic,
Yeah.
tired,
What about
Yeah.
veganism for kids?
You have to be watchful of it. You have to look and see like what's happening with the children on their weight curves. Every time we see children for their annual visits, we do something that's called a growth chart.
Uh-huh.
So we're able to see like where they're plotting for their growth. And we've had some kids who have, the parents are very, vigilant that they want their child to be vegan, but you can see that the child is not growing
Yeah.
well. And we actually had 2 kids that end up having rickets because the parents were adamant about like not doing any kind of meat-based products,
Mm.
not doing any kind of dairy. And those children had very, very low vitamin D levels, and then hence low calcium levels, and they were pretty sick.
Wow.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
So this can kind of allow us to segue into the next topic, which is medicine versus food, right? Or letting food be your medicine. So
Okay, those two cases. We have to start thinking about nutrition as a first line of not only defense, but a first line of prevention against all these other ailments. In fact, even people who have ailments, they get, they have diabetes, they have Crohn's disease, they get on a keto or carnivore diet. What happens? It all reverses. They get better without medication. They get off their medication, and they have the tools that equip them to move forward with their life in a more positive way. So they're not sitting there just extending their lifespan, but they're also extending their health span.
Being what is it called, bow-legged?
Yeah.
So really excessive bow-leggedness. You get expansion of the wrist because the bones are so active and breaking down, and they're at risk for fractures and those kind of things.
Can
So
you
this says children on vegan
Yeah,
diets
see,
had
there you
about
go.
5% lower bone mineral content and were on average 3 centimeters shorter in height.
That's correct.
Very interesting.
So can
it's
you
definitely
reverse
affecting
that?
the bones.
you
can.
you can reverse
You
it?
can, yeah.
If you don't catch it too late, if they're a vegan all the way through high school and college, they've already gone through their growing phase. I don't know if you can reverse it.
You have to be cautious about, like, you can get a lot of protein from like lentils.
Mhm.
But yes, you can get a lot of protein from plant foods, but they're not as bioavailable. They've done studies on this. Eggs, 96, 97% bioavailability. That means that 97% of the protein in that egg your body is taking and using. Beef, 94%. Okay, these are very high. This is optimal. You can look at a plant-based burger, 20 grams of protein in it, whatever it is, 30 grams, 48% bioavailable. It's not as good. It is not as good. If you want to build muscle, I'm not talking about these gym rats either. I'm talking about functional muscle for your kids to perform optimally, to go through life optimally, whatever you call it. I'm using the word optimally a lot. I'm not sure why, but you get my point. Okay. It's very, very important that you get meat as protein because it has B vitamins, it has vitamin K2, these things, vitamin B12, especially in animal products. These people who eat a vegan diet get zero B12. And what do you see everybody say when they say, oh, I have low energy, I need a B12 shot? No, you just need to go eat some meat. Simple as that.
Sausages that I try to make for them, and then I have a hard-boiled egg for them. I'm not the biggest cook. I try to be efficient in the morning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
us too.
So, but they like
That's the
that.
hardest thing to do. I don't know what I would do for my kids if I was this passionate about it and I didn't have the time or the availability or the know-how to cook. you've got to cook the meals in the home. That's the only way to know what's going in your body.
Ketones are a much better fuel for the brain. And then maybe if they want to get their carbs later in the day, like at lunch, fine. But then I'm also trying to get feedback from the parents of like, hey, how's school going in the morning? Oh yeah, teacher says little Johnny's really locked in, paying attention. But then after lunch, we have a different story. Well, then I tell the parents, well, then you need to be mindful of like what kind of carbs and stuff your kiddos are eating at lunch.
Right.
That's impacting the way that they're able to complete that second half of the day.
Yeah.
But then
Okay, what's really interesting about kids, and I think it has to deal with an overproduction, this book I'm reading called Caffeine Blues, it has to deal with an overproduction of DHEA. Their adrenals pump this stuff out in droves in youth. And it is, think of it like the energy chemical, right? It gives them an abundance of energy. But one of the things I've figured out, and as you age, your body pumps out less and less. What also makes you pump out less and less is stress and cortisol levels when those are high. What causes high cortisol levels, high stress levels? Caffeine. Okay, this is another thing I'm reading. On day 7 right now of no coffee. I have a ton of energy. I don't fall asleep the second my kids go to bed. I don't feel like I just crash on the couch and, oh, thank goodness this day is over. In fact, I think a lot of alcoholism might be tied to the high stress. You're drinking 3-4 cups of coffee, 500, 600 milligrams of coffee every day. You're stressed to the max. You're pumping out a ton of cortisol. You got the fight or flight response. You get to the end of the day, people want to drink and they want to get back to even. And then not only do they wake up with a caffeine hangover, but they wake up hungover from alcohol. It's a vicious cycle. Okay, I got way off topic here, but the point is that kids have a ton of energy. And what's really interesting is they get their energy from food. Watch your kid, whether it's a healthy meal or not a healthy meal. My kids right now are 8 and 6. And I've experienced this for the last several years that I've at least been taking notice of it, is that what's paused it, I shouldn't have paused it, it doesn't matter. But what's interesting about them is that when they eat a meal, they get tons of energy. They go outside and they run sprints in their playhouse and jump down the slide and do the monkey bars. When it was summertime, they get in the pool. The amount of energy I was envious of. 7 days off of coffee, I'm starting to understand it. Whole other video coming soon about the withdrawal from coffee and the immense positive effects I'm feeling afterwards. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this little clip of a deep dive into Dr. Naidoo. Go see the actual full episode. The guy is a trailblazer when it comes to pediatrics. He is doing things, or should I say not doing things, that most other pediatricians are doing, which is enabling our kids to grow up healthy and sharp. And Lord, are we deficient in that these days. All right. That's all I got for you guys now. Go check out the full episode. Follow us on Counter Cause. Our Instagram's blowing up. I don't know what's going on. Props to you, Evan Kaufman. Maybe it's just because you got the great movie star hair. I don't know. But you guys go check it out. Anyway, take care. See you next time.